steel mills, coal mines, Super Bowl, colorful lexicon like Jaguar, Whoosh, Stillers, Slibbity, Jumbo, Chip Chop, and that. If you're a Pittsburgher, you undoubtedly understand what I just said. But just as not every Pittsburgher talks this way, not every Pittsburgher follows in the steps of those who came before him. Join us now in learning how one Pittsburgher took the lessons from the Steel City and used them to forge a new path.
Thank you, the most esteemed and effervescent New York Pittsburgher. I'm not quite sure where that came from. Forging a new path. Who are you? What a provocative question to answer. I believe we're all an aggregation of our life's experiences, of our personalities, of our traits, of everything that's come before us. I believe there's a relationship between nature and nurture that's dynamic, it's ever growing, it's ever there. And that makes us who we are every single day. But that interrelationship can also cause strife between who we are, who we're supposed to be, and our culture. I grew up in Pittsburgh, not New York. And in the suburbs of Pittsburgh, I grew up in the 1970s when Mayor Richard Caligiuri was taking the steel town through the most dramatic renaissance that the city had ever known. When you think of Pittsburgh, you think of dirt, soot, steel mills, coal mines, blue-collar workers. That's not the reality today. He was able to change the city within 3 terms as mayor from that individual perception to become one of technology, education, and medical research. Complete transformation of the city. And it had a huge impact on me. That if one man could transform generations of steel workers and mill workers to become technologically savvy, I could certainly be able to transform who I wanted to become from not just what my family had always been, but to where I wanted to go. And that played a major impact on me. My family was no different from most of the families throughout Pittsburgh. My grandfather on my mom's side, steel worker, coal miner, spent 40 years working a steel press in the Mon Valley. Very impressive, but not the life that I ever wanted for myself. My grandfather on my father's side built the churches all around Pittsburgh. He built the great Polish cathedrals on Polish Hill. Again, not the life that I ever wanted for myself. But to be able to move out of that life, I had to make some extremely strong choices, and not ones that were always very easy to make. It was always just a given that the men in Pittsburgh will grow up to become just like their parents. We don't move away. We don't become different. We are just a regurgitation of the lives that came before us. And Michelle, I appreciate the regurgitation face in the background. But that wasn't who I ever wanted to become. I knew that there was much more out there. My folks should have known from an early age that I was not going to be the person that they wanted me to be. I knew there was going to be disappointment for them, but in life, I guess there are just disappointments. I was an only child. I'm an only grandchild. So imagine my parents' distaste when all of a sudden I said, I have no intention of ever joining a union, of ever working in a steel mill, of ever going into a coal mine, except to hide from you. And that I was going to do something that you would all hate. I was going to become a manager and a leader. That pause that you just heard there was the same pause that I heard from my parents and from my grandparents when I announced that I was going to become the dreaded manager. I was going to become the man. And the man always keeps you down. But I was going to become that guy. When I was a kid, I was a latchkey kid as well. And because of that, I had a ton of time to explore and to see what else was out there around the city. Most people in Pittsburgh don't cross bridges, don't go over hills, and certainly don't go through tunnels. But as a little kid, I was able to find enough spare change laying around that I could easily hop on a trolley and go from my house to Polish Hill to get the best pierogies and galupki that you could ever imagine. I always called it exploring. The police tended to call it running away. And they returned me. I wasn't running away, I was lost. I was lost not just in the fact that I had no idea where Mount Lebanon was and how I'd gotten to where I'd gotten, but I was also lost in trying to figure out who I wanted to become. I wanted to experience as many things as I could possibly experience. When I was in either 6th or 7th grade, there was a story that I remember very vividly watching on 60 Minutes. And it was about how technology and robotics were replacing steel workers. And they were replacing all the manufacturing jobs. And I remember my parents' response to that. How could they possibly let this happen? This is the end of American civilization. All of these foreigners were stealing our jobs. But if we just hold the course, it's going to allow us to come back to where we were before. And I said, you've got to be kidding me. At some point, we have to grow and become somebody different. This is a great opportunity for the city to be able to grow, to learn new things, to be able to become something that we could have never imagined before. And I was so excited about that. My excitement waned when a week later I was still under house arrest for being grounded for being so disrespectful. 2 weeks later, my father retold that story to his mom. It was the last time I was ever allowed to step foot in my grandmother's house. I was ostracized from my family, truly, because I wanted to be something very different. I never spoke to my grandmother after that, even though she died some 20 years later, because I was going to be the one to do something so very different. My life has always been filled with doing things in a different way, at a different time, at a different pace. I'm the first person in my family to own a business. I'm the first person in my family to go to college and graduate. I'm the first person in my family to ever move away from the city of Pittsburgh on purpose, not because we were sent there by the man. I continue to forge that path, a different path from what I ever imagined my life would be. And I continue to grow with those lessons I learned from Mayor Richard Caligiuri, the most effervescent of mayors Pittsburgh has ever seen. And I continue to take that path to go somewhere that I could never have imagined, where my parents still say, maybe someday he'll come home and work in the mill. And I still say, guys, come on. I've been gone for almost 20 years. Give it a break. And then my mom says, well, how about kids? And again, I go things a different way. So when you see someone standing before you and they speak, not as a New Yorker, but they say, hey, G-Jet? Have some jumbo, get on there, Sliberty and that? I grew up with that, but it's not necessarily who I am, it's just where I'm from. Thank you very much.